us. It's turning, and we should be live with a
Live
little
and
delay.
direct. Hello, Steve.
Hello, Potfeet.
We have a lot to do today, so I'm not going to faff about at the beginning. There
All
will
right.
be a live show next week, but it will be a lot of listener content, so there won't be a lot of contributions. But we'll probably be at Lindsay and Nolan, so you might get to talk to the grandkids, and I know how you love that. So we'll see whether that's something you want to attend. Anyway, we have roll call. We've got Kevin and Tim and Frank and Jill and Ed and John and Rose and Sandy and Steve and Michael. Nice crowd. Anybody in the
Good
sidebar
crowd.
I missed?
Well, call your name out if we missed you.
I see Aaliyah.
In the
MacBook
sidebar?
Air
Oh, yeah.
15-inch. 15-inch. How do you get a new MacBook Air 15-inch? There's no such thing as a new 15-inch. You mean 14? All right. I'm going to start recording. All right. Here we go. Let's start. Hi, this is Allison Sheridan of the NosillaCast podcast, hosted at podfeet.com, a technology geek podcast with an ever so slight Apple bias. Today is Sunday, November 19th, 2023, and this is show number 967. Well, we will have a live show next week on Thanksgiving weekend. It'll be Sunday. We might be still down at Lindsay and Nolan's house, so, a good chance of seeing the grandkids, because I know how you love that on the live show. But it'll be a lot of listener content that's already been contributed, and I'm really excited to get to take most of the week off to play with the kiddos. I wish my voice squeaked, huh? All right. Ooh, you want me to save? That's an idea. How about here? NC ep semicolon save. All right, now you want a chapter mark. So much demand. Copy link, paste, enter. All right. Nope. Last week I forgot to tell you that I got to be on the Daily Tech News Show again with Tom Merritt and Roger Chang this time, and I had a total blast. We talked about prognostications from Mark Gurman and Ming-Chi Kuo about Apple's future stuff. We analyzed Sony's Portal, and then I shared the perfect note-taking app. Spoiler, I use 8 of them. Anyway, you can find a link in the show notes to the episode entitled Apps for Noteworthy Events, or you can search in your podcatcher of choice for Daily Tech News Show and subscribe. And another chapter mark. Did you guys see that Bart did a talk where you get to actually watch him on video?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Don't ask again. Cancel. Stop doing that. All right. Just recently, Bart did a presentation to the Mac in Awe Mac Users Group. They call themselves Maya Mug. His talk was entitled Staying Ahead of the Baddies, and he was talking about security and what we could do about it. Luckily, they posted his awesome talk on YouTube so we can all enjoy it. And of course, I put a link in the show notes to that video. All right, lots of short ones. Let's see. This is a weird title because that name has to be in those backticks, even though it looks stupid. There's a reason for it. All right. Let me open up this. After our annual break from programming by stealth that happens at an unknown time for an unknown length of time. Nope, you got to read it just as it says it. After our annual break from programming by stealth that seems to happen at an unknown time for an unknown length of time every single year, Bart and I are back with a new episode of Programming by Stealth. Barth. I should probably pronounce his name right. I'm just spitballing here, but it seems like a good idea. Bart introduces us to a language called JQ and a terminal command called JQ, which together are used to help us query JSON files. We can see pretty versions of them, and we can also manipulate them. Now, we don't learn a lot of commands in this episode, but Bart walks us through a few examples to help illustrate why we care, or shall I say, the problem to be solved. I am sold on the idea of having. Jeez. I am not on my game today. I'm sold on the idea, having just mucked about in a config file for Homebridge just this week that was in JSON, so I'm really excited to learn the rest of this. Of course, there's a link in the show notes to Bart's fabulous tutorial show notes. Why did I say it that way? Of course, you can find this episode of Programming by Stealth in either the Chit Chat Across the Pond feed or the Programming by Stealth feed in your podcatcher of choice. All right, that was clumsy, but we're going to take it because I am... Okay, finally. Done with the announcements. Come on. There we are. Now we're going to have some fun. So I'm going to be talking about another way to replace the pedias, like DVDpedia and Bookpedia and stuff. And Sandy, I forgot to tell you this. The developer from Brugy, Connor, I wrote to him and told him that I was doing these, and he was super excited, and he's going to post links to my blog posts over on his website. So that's going to be cool. All right. Here we go. Nope. Last week, I told you how DVDpedia, the DVD cataloging database, was being sunset by the developer at Brugy.com. I explained how I exported all of my data in a CSV file, plus the images, and then I imported them into Under My Roof from Binary Formations, the app I use to catalog everything in my home. When I finished the article, Sandy Foster in the live chat room said she was sure glad to learn about this because she uses another one of the pedias. She uses Bookpedia. She's cataloged all of her quilting books and would now need to look for a new solution. She's not really interested in maintaining a database of everything in her home, so Under My Roof would be overkill for her. When I posted my article about the process, Brian Blankenship on Mastodon thought Under My Roof sounded like a great tool, but he's a Windows user, and wondered if I knew of an equivalent for him. In response to Brian, I explained that I haven't personally used any tools like this on Windows, but whenever I'm asked about alternatives for Windows users, I usually start at a site called Alternative 2. You enter the software for which you want an alternative, and then you can filter the results by things like, what platform you want the tool to run on, whether it's open source, and the pricing model. The results are kind of hit or miss, but if there is a good alternative, it might just show up on this site. I filtered Alternative 2's results for Brian down to just Windows inventory programs, and I wished him the best of luck. Isn't a Mac user an alternative for a Windows user? I like it. True dat. But then I got to thinking. Here's Brian and Sandy both looking for a way to catalog some stuff, and for which Under My Roof might not be the right answer. What if Sandy and Brian could just use a normal database program to import their data? Now, I knew Sandy had cataloged books, and I went back to Brian on Mastodon and I asked him what kind of items he was hoping to track in a database and how he had his data now. He answered, I have two goals. One, to catalog my CD and DVD collection, and two, to have a household inventory. I've ripped my CD collection and most of my DVDs and Blu-rays, so I can create an import file if that's possible with your solution. And I have a few different yet incomplete spreadsheets with lists of household goods. Well, this was going to be perfect. I know how I could help both Sandy and Brian, and maybe some of you. My favorite freemium. My favorite freemium database program is Airtable from Airtable.com. Back in 2018, I wrote an article entitled, I Finally Understand Databases Because of the Free Airtable app, and I've actually been using it ever since. Steve and I use it to manage what shows we're watching on TV, and we also use it to manage all of our interviews from trade shows like CES and the CSUN Assistive Tech Conference. Now, Bart always says follow the money to make sure a free tool isn't a creepy tool, or as he likes to call it, a freepy tool. I'm glad to say that Airtable does have a fee-based plan for teams and businesses at $20 and $40. I'll get it right. At 20. I'm glad to. I'm glad to say that Airtable does have fee-based plans, one for teams and one for businesses, at $20 and $45 per month, respectively. No, that's not right. I'm glad to say that Airtable does have fee-based plans for teams and businesses at $20 and $45 per month per seat, respectively, but they still have it for free for an individual or very small teams like me and Steve, and with that you can get unlimited bases, 1,000 records per base with up to 5 editors, 1 gigabyte of attachments per base, and a few more features. I asked Sandy to export a CSV file from her Bookpedia database so I could test to see if Airtable might work for her. Sandy's always up for a good experiment and was even more enthusiastic since this might solve her immediate problem. It sounded like Brian could make his data available in the same way. Airtable is available as a standalone app for macOS, Windows, iOS, and Android, or you can just log in with your free account at airtable.com. My testing with iPadOS... I got to read the aside first. It's not accessible. Before I dig in, though, if you're a VoiceOver user, I hate to tell you that not enough of the interface is accessible to make it usable with a screen reader. It's close, but then you just hit a brick wall. I started by trying to import the CSV file, and it pops up an overlay window that isn't accessible by VoiceOver. I tested it on the macOS app and via the web. I tried with VoiceOver on iPadOS, and hardly any of the buttons were even labeled. Big fish shake to the people at Airtable. Now, my testing with iPadOS with VoiceOver was also informative because I discovered that there is no way to import data from the iOS version of Airtable. Luckily, you can run Airtable via the web, and the import functions work even on iOS. So, if you're blessed with the gift of sight and you have a desktop or web version of Airtable, we can get started. I promise it's easy and awesome from here on out. When Airtable starts, you can create various workspaces on the left, and then using the button in the bottom left, you can add a new base or database. Once you create a new base, there may be 2 different ways to import the CSV file. I saw a sidebar on the right showing a bunch of nifty options, but you can also see in the default grid view a button that says plus, add, or import. Kind of looks like a new tab, but when selected, you'll see that with a free account, you can import a CSV file like we want, but you can also do it from Google Sheets or Microsoft Excel. There's a popover to see even more sources, including Apple Numbers, Calendar, Contacts, XML, and more. Now, this is good news for Brian because he already has a spreadsheet started on his home inventory, so he can just start from there without needing to go through the intermediate step with a CSV file. After selecting CSV, we get the overlay I mentioned earlier asking us to drag and drop or copy and paste files. We can also select import from several of the typical cloud storage providers. In this case, I'll just drag Sandy's Bookpedia CSV from my desktop, and I selected Upload. One important point about Airtable that I probably should mention. Airtable syncs through their cloud, so as soon as you hit Upload, you've put your data onto their servers. Now, in Sandy and my case, with our DVD and book collections, that's not really a concern. But when I saw the option to upload my contacts, it gave me a little hitch in my giddy-up, if you know what I mean. I'll leave it up to you to read, understand, and make your own decision of whether you trust Airtable's privacy policy. Okay, back to the fun part. The next question will be whether you want to create a new table or import it into the default table that you started with. I chose New Table because that default table had fields I wasn't interested in, and I didn't want to clean it up if they got all mushed together. Now, Airtable then pops up a little mock-up of what the data will look like when it's imported, with a note at the top that says, check to make sure it's right or let us know if something looks wrong. Oh, I'm making it almost like 2 paragraphs without coughing. This is great. Below the mockup is an option to adjust the import and a button that says All Fields. This button pops up a list of the fields that will be imported, and all can be unchecked except for that first sacred field that I talked about last week. Sandy's Bookpedia export included the number of pages in each book, and she didn't give a hoot about that. On doing this import, she could simply uncheck that field, and her new database would be cleaner right off the bat. Now, one of my favorite things about Airtable is how easy it is to create different field types. By that, I mean you can define a field type as text, number, date, checkboxes, multiple selects, single selects, phone numbers, emails, and more. In this import mockup, Airtable auto-selected field types for Sandy's data. For example, since she has several books by the same author, it chose single select as the field type. That means as she adds books, she can simply select from these. Let me re-say that. In this saving, thank you. Multiple selects, single selects, phone number. In this import mockup, Airtable auto-selected field types for Sandy's data. For example, since she has several books by the same author, it chose single select as the field type. That means that when she adds a new book, she can go to the author field and just tap on these little single selects. It's really a cool way of doing it. Airtable delightfully color codes the different options in the select fields in these nice pastels, so it's very easy to see the distinctive options in addition to reading the text. So I hit import, and in about 7 seconds, I had a beautiful grid view of all of Sandy's quilting books. While this grid view is nice enough, the real fun in Airtable will come when we create new views. But first, we have to eat our vegetables. Remember, we still need to get the book cover images into Sandy's database. As you may recall, CSV files can't contain images, so we're going to have to drag them in one by one from the separate export images made by Bookpedia. Last week, when I talked about doing my database, I explained that the books were in order by when... They weren't books. Last week, when I explained importing my books... Nope, they're still not books. Last week, when I talked about importing my DVDs into a database, I explained that the images for the cover art were in numerical order by when I had added them to the database. I happened to get into a conversation with Connor, the developer from Brugy, and he explained there's a UID field that you can reveal, and that's that little number that I see in the order of the of the DVD images. Anyway, if I had had that, I would have been able to reorder and sort things in under my roof in order to make it faster and easier to import my images. That's something important to know. All right, anyway, now we're back to Sandy and her Bookpedia database. The first thing I needed to do was create a new field to hold her book cover images. If you scroll to the right of your existing fields, you'll see a plus button. From there, you can name your field, and you have to select the field type. In this case, we want attachment. If you hover over attachment, you'll even see a tooltip telling you that this field is for images, but also for documents or other file types. You can add a description to the field, but I figured book covers as a title field or as a field title would be sufficient. The book covers will be the showy part of this grid view, so I think dragging this field as far as possible to the left would look good. Remember though, the title field is sacred, so it's going to stay on the far left and the images can go into the second column over. Now, attachment fields, when selected, show a little message that says, "Drop files here," inviting Sandy to drag in her book cover images exported by Bookpedia. There's to be no magic here. She still has to drag each book cover image in one by one, just like I did in Under My Roof. The other thing of note is that it takes a few seconds for the image to show up in Airtable as you drag it in. I assume that time is because Airtable is sending the image up to the cloud. The good news is she doesn't need to sit there and wait for it. She can start finding the next image while it's still working. Once the tedium of importing the images is complete, the fun can begin. The main reason to keep an inventory in a database instead of a simple spreadsheet is the ability to create completely different views of the data depending on what you want to see. The main view is called the grid view, and it's just as boring as any spreadsheet, except in this case it's like in color and it's got some images in it. At the bottom of the Airtable window, there's a section that says Create, and it lists several views you can add with the free version of Airtable, along with a few that require a team account. One of the ones that might be fun for Sandy is called the Kanban view. Kanban is a Japanese term for signboard, and it's often used in manufacturing or in coding to develop a visual way of looking at data. The key thing about Kanban is that it's really pretty and yet organizes the data in useful ways. In Airtable, the first thing to do is to choose a grouping field. Okay, did I get Kanban? I've got Frank and Michael. Did I get a good enough definition of Kanban there? Yes, but the A is too harsh. Kanban? You mean you talking about my Midwestern Kanban accent? Is it Kanban? Kanban. Ah, well, I'm going to change it. I'll re-record it. Kanban is a At the bottom of the Airtable. I never knew that. At the bottom, there we go. At the bottom of the Airtable window, there's a section that says Create, and it lists several views you can add with the free version of Airtable, along with a few that require a team account. One of the ones that might be fun for Sandy is the Kanban view. Kanban is a Japanese term for signboard, and it's often used in manufacturing or in coding to develop a visual way of looking at data. The key thing about Kanban is that it's really pretty, and yet it organizes the data in useful ways. In Airtable, the first thing to do with the Kanban is to choose a grouping field. In Sandy's case, a good grouping, yeah, I hear it, Steve. Anyway, a good grouping might be by author. The resulting Kanban view shows the books stacked vertically by author with their pretty book covers. Now, I've only dragged in some of the book covers for the screenshot in the show notes, but it still looks really cool. Now, we don't get much information beyond the title and the pretty cover in this default Kanban view. If Sandy wants to see more information on each card, she can go to Customize Cards and toggle on other fields such as the publisher, genre, and location. But let's say Sandy wants to see the books by their location. She could create a new Kanban view and stack it by location, or she can select Stacked by Author and just change the current one to location. I played around with that, and very quickly I could see that Sandy has a little bit of data cleanup to do because of tiny typos in the locations. It'll be a matter of seconds for her to use the single select field in the grid view to choose the correct locations, and then her Kanban view will be beautiful. I think the gallery view in Airtable might be a great option as well. If Sandy's a very visual person, she might like the gallery view, which makes little cards for each record with a pretty book cover showing prominently. She can turn on and off info about the books, like maybe she wants to show the location she's entered so she can find the book on the right bookshelf. They look much like the Kanban view, but they're simply in alphabetical order. Of course, Airtable provides sorting on all of the fields in a simple drop-down at the top of the table. With over 200 books cataloged, Sandy might like to take advantage of the filter option at the top. Sandy's tagged the books with genre, so she could filter to find just the type of book she's looking for. I could go on and on and on about how much fun you can have with Airtable and setting up views for your data, but I think you get the picture. I think for Sandy and Brian, Airtable might be a great free alternative to buying a dedicated application for doing inventories. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't explain why I would still choose Under My Roof for me. It's the difference between building your own structure and having a tool tailored to this specific task. Under My Roof already has separate areas expecting photos, receipts, and warranty information. It notifies me when my items go out of warranty. It has a special area for my insurance information. When I got my Apple Watch repaired, there was already a place for that information to be recorded. It even knows my devices are going to have serial numbers. But I also understand that not everyone will do the work to maintain this level of information, so Airtable might be a much easier place for the Brians and Sandys of this world to get a better handle on the things they do want to inventory. I made it.
You did.
One down.
Let me
That
ask
was the easy one.
a question about the attention voiceover users insert.
Yeah.
I assume that's that can be read by a voiceover user?
Yeah, it's not.
'Cause-
It's text.
Okay, it looks
it's-
different. It's just
It's styled. It's styled in
Okay.
yellow, and it's indented on the. Or it's an insert on the right.
how would they run across it? Would they just naturally, if they're reading this through voiceover, would it just naturally go to that pane?
Yeah, so one of the things they can do with voiceover is they can jump from heading to heading and from section to section. And aside is a, God, what is the word? I really hated what I learned in programming originally, and I used to complain about it. Oh, Michael, help me. When a tag means something, there's a name for that. So when they see aside, they know that it's a separate
Okay.
it's a separate thing, but they can definitely jump to it.
All right.
You know what I'm talking about, right, Michael? I hated the word. I complained about it.
Doesn't have meaning to you?
Yeah, it's a strange word that means that this thing means something. So,
Relevant.
for example, you could make something look just like one of my headings just by making it bold. Semantic. That's what it is. So a heading level 3 has semantic meaning. It means something to be a heading level 3, whereas just being bold doesn't mean anything. But to somebody who's just looking at a web page visually, they can look identical. But to them, it means something to be a heading level 3 versus heading level 4.
Got it. Klaus. Is that you, Klaus? You went on mute.
You're in
now.
San Francisco.
Oh, there you go.
Hi, Klaus.
Welcome.
Nice to see you. For once, it's not in the middle of the night for you, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Oh, I'm dreading this one. This one's so long. You guys should take a nap or something, because it's going to be long. This is...
Oh, yeah, this is a long one.
What did I say, Sandy? It's over 4,000 words.
Wow.
Yeah. It's not my fault. Apple made it too complicated. Yeah, it's a book. This one was exhausting. I definitely couldn't have done this one without Sandy. I think it's fun, but I don't think anybody else is going to care but me and Sandy. Jill helped too.
I helped a little, I think.
You did. You let me use your devices. Yes, Kevin, you should definitely go to sleep. All right. I even have a warning message at the front. Here we go. Every once in a while, I start working on a topic for the show, and as I dig in, I realize it's way more complex than I first realized. More rational people would back away and just move on to another subject. But if I don't hit a roadblock, I just keep digging. And sometimes I descend into madness. And this is one of those times. I really recommend you skip this entire subject rather than descend with me. But if you continue to listen and read, really recommend. I really recommend that you just skip this entire subject rather than descend with me. But if you continue to listen, just blame yourself, okay? I told you this is going to get deep. All right, let's start with a history lesson. Way back in 2015, Apple introduced live photos. A photo taken in live on the iPhone captures like a second and a half before and after the photo is taken. Then in software, the phone chooses what it considers the best key photo, but you can go into the editor in Photos and adjust the key photo to get that perfect moment in time. In my opinion, it's the only way to take photos of children and pets. The other feature of live photos is that you can use some fun effects like bounce and long exposure to create interesting images and videos. A year later, in 2016, Apple introduced portrait mode, which allowed us to take shallow depth of field photos, mimicking what we can do with a big girl camera. Over the years, the quality of portrait images has gotten better and better and can create very compelling photos of people and pets. But if you choose to take a portrait photo, it's not a live photo. You had to choose between the cool, shallow depth of field or the ability to capture just the right frame. If you captured that perfect smile in portrait photo, that was awesome. But if you missed it, the photo was useless. The problem at this point in the story is that we had to choose between live and portrait photos. Before you took the shot, you had to decide if you wanted to be able to select the best photo in a live photo or risk it and try to get a fabulous portrait photo of a person or pet. With the advent of the iPhone 15 models, the entire line, and with iOS 17 and macOS Sonoma, Apple gave us almost the best of all worlds. If you take a photo of a person, a dog, or a cat, sorry, bird and reptile people, but you take it even in live, it can become a portrait photo. I know, it sounds too good to be true, right? Well, this very cool feature has some tricks to it. We're going to go through how to know you're taking a live portrait photo, limitations on live versus portrait in these photos, how to edit the depth of field, and how to share these images so the recipient can also edit the depth of field. And thar be dragons.
So you can take pictures of dragons too.
Yes. Dragons indeed. I took 2 photos to demonstrate the first item on our list, how to know you're taking a live photo. The first photo I took was of my laptop, which, no matter how much I love it, is not a person, dog, or cat. The second photo I took was of my cat Ada, and of course she's named after the first computer programmer, Ada Lovelace. In the upper right of the camera app, while taking each of these images, I made sure that the live photo indicator did not have a line through it, so I knew I was taking a live photo. Down below, just above the shutter button, I made certain I had selected a regular photo. It just says photo, not pano or portrait or any of the other options. As I pointed my camera at the 2 different subjects, there was one subtle difference in the on-screen information. When I pointed at my cat, the camera showed a little F in a circle as an overlay on top of the image in the bottom left. When I looked at my laptop with the camera app, there was no little F showing. This F is the indicator to let you know that you'll be able to change the depth of field on the photo you're about to take. Now, if you don't see the F when you point your iPhone 15 at a person, dog, or cat, you may have to toggle on this feature. It should be on by default, but if you don't see the F when you look at a person, dog, or cat, you need to open Settings, Camera, and then scroll down until you see Photos in Portrait. Nope. Camera. But if you don't, see it, open Settings, Camera, and then scroll down till you see Portraits in Photo Mode. The text below the toggle says, automatically capture depth information. Okay, we're going to start this section over again. Now, if you don't see... Now, if you don't see the F when you point your iPhone 15 at a person, dog, or cat, you may have to toggle on this feature. It should be on by default, but if you don't see it, open Settings, Camera, and then scroll down till you see Portraits in Photo Mode. The text below the toggle says, automatically capture depth information if a person, dog, or cat is prominent in the frame in photo mode so you can apply portrait effects later. In traditional photography with big girl cameras, you have a dial that changes what's called the f-stop. As the f-stop number gets smaller, the lens opens up more, which creates the shallower depth of field. Think about how it's harder to focus driving at night. That's because your pupils dilate super big, and then you have a shallower depth of field. Anyway, Apple have chosen the F symbol to indicate that you'll be able to change the effective f-stop inside the Photos app. What's interesting here, beyond learning a wee bit about traditional photography, is that the iPhone 15 has been instructed to take a live photo, but it's still going to let us change the depth of field. After you take the photo in live, but not portrait, of a person, cat, or dog, the indicator in the upper left will have an F in a circle and the word live next to it. The drop-down will be there to play around with effects like bounce and long exposure. But hold that thought. When you edit the image, across the bottom, along with the normal editing options, you'll see both portrait, with an F in a circle, and live side by side, if you're looking on the iPhone. Now, if you select live, you can drag the slider to choose a different key photo. But there's something new on the slider. Above the initial key photo, there's a little F in a circle again. Now remember, when I started the story, I said Apple gave us almost the best of all worlds. There's a limitation. The depth information is only on that initial key photo. If you didn't capture what you wanted and you need to change to a different key photo, then you won't be able to adjust the depth of field. Now, I didn't want you to be confused, because if you start changing the key photo and then you change over to portrait to adjust the depth, suddenly the photo changes back to the original key photo. But hey, you got a better photo because you did take it in live. Now, I look at it as the live photo's there just in case you missed the perfect moment, but you get all the benefits of portrait mode if you did capture the perfect moment. So still in the editor, when you select the portrait option, again, with the F on the bottom, you'll see the word depth and on the left and a dial across the bottom, but it'll default by saying off. At this point, pretty much everything in your image should look in focus. But if you start to slide your finger along the dial, you'll see little numbers popping up like F16 down to F1.4. We could go through why they're numbered this way, but that's a whole how cameras work explanation, so let's stick with what I said before. The smaller the number, the shallower the depth of field. If you want to understand all that, go back and listen to the very beginning episodes of Let's Talk Photography by Bart Busschots. All right, as you drag your finger across this little dial, you're going to see the background of your photo go out of focus. If you drag all the way to f1.4, you might see part of your subject go out of focus. Say a dog with a long nose, they might end up with their ears out of focus. You probably don't want that, so drag it up until you see your subject in focus, but distractions in the background are blurred out. But that's not all. You'll see an orange square on the screen showing you where the camera's original focus point was. You can simply tap anywhere on the image to change what's in focus. In 2014, you might remember a company called Lytro. They came out with a specialized camera. It was real expensive, and it allowed you to change what was in focus like this. And now we have this capability in our pockets. If you've ever taken a picture, say, of two people in front of maybe some pretty scenery, like there's a canyon behind them or something, and then the camera focused on the scenery between them instead, and the photos was useless, now with this camera in the iPhone 15, you'll be able to fix that image and focus on the people. In the upper left, next to yet another F in a circle, you'll see a hexagon icon with two circles in it. It looks kind of like the metal nut on the end of a screw to me. Tap that icon and you'll be taken into the studio lighting options. Perhaps you're feeling a bit fancy and you want to choose a fabulous stage lighting effect for your cat photo. When you're in lighting mode with the nut selected, the F icon changes to say the f-stop you've chosen. So in my case, it said f2.8. Not sure why you need that information while you're playing with the lighting, but it's there for you if you need it. All right, I'm back. I'm glad I got that mic interface with a good mute button. If you do give studio lighting a play, be sure to go back and forth with the depth of field because it can dramatically change how your studio lighting effect looks. Also, if you apply studio lighting, this turns off live. When you flip to the live slider control, it's going to be completely grayed out. At the top, you'll see the word live and a box with a line through the live icon, and tapping on that will make it live again. But that will also turn off any studio lighting effects you might have applied. After you save your changes to the depth of field and or the studio lighting effects, I think the on-screen information gets confusing. In the upper left, it will still say live, even though it's no longer live, and the F icon has a line running behind it, not across it, but behind it. That would imply to me, though, that this isn't a portrait image any longer and that it's still live, but it's actually the opposite. Under the chevron that drops down where you used to see loop, bounce along exposure, you now have live, live off, portrait, and portrait off. I played with these options for a bit, and if anything, I was more confused as I toggled them on and off, especially when I had studio lighting applied. I was going to try to explain it to you, but I'm pretty sure it's not acting exactly as they intended it because it was very confusing, so we're just going to abandon that whole path and move on. Now, my interest in this entire topic came up because I had a problem to be solved. Pat Dingler joined our family at a brewery nearby, and we used Pat's new iPhone 15 Pro to take a family portrait. Pat is family, so of course she was in it, and she had set her camera to regular portrait mode when the photo was taken. That's cool, but when we looked at the photos, we realized that the depth of field was too shallow, and some of us, including Pat and me, were way out of focus. Now, understandably, Pat didn't want to be responsible for choosing the right photo from all the ones that we took to adjust the depth of field. So she said, I'm just going to give them all to you, and you find the best one, and then I could fix them. It turns out to be much trickier to transfer editable depth photos than I ever would have imagined, and this is where the real madness began. Now, in our family, we normally just create a shared album in Apple Photos for family events. But when Pat added these portrait photos to our shared album, we could not edit the depth of field. Now, I knew shared albums weren't full resolution, but I didn't realize they would lose some of the editing functionality. It was time to go on a quest to find a way to move these photos from her library to mine and let me do the depth of field editing. Now, it's very mean of me to do it this way, but I'm going to start by telling you all the methods that failed first, and then I'll tell you what does work. The next most likely way to succeed at sharing a photo with an Apple-centric person is to send the image via iMessage. If you drag an image from Photos into Messages or use the share icon at the top of the Photos app and share to Messages, the image loses the depth data when it arrives at the other end. That really surprised me because iMessage, it's usually my go-to when other methods fail. I tried iCloud sharing next, but it also failed me. You have to log into iCloud.com to share files. You can't right-click to share a photo. And then when you choose to share a photo, it gives you the option to copy a link and send it to someone. But when you send that link to someone, you can clearly see it's a photo with depth information because it has our little F symbol, but the edit button is grayed out when they receive it. I think it makes sense, though, because iCloud sharing is kind of just letting someone look at your photos. It's not a collaboration method. Then I got to thinking, maybe we need to export the image first. If you do a simple export from Photos in macOS using File, Export, Export One Photo, or Shift Command E, you can set the export to be HEIC, JPEG, PNG, or TIFF. But this is not the full original photo format, even if you export to HEIC. To export the original in all its glory with its precious depth information, you need to select File, Export, Export, Unmodified Original. Option Shift E. Okay. If you're on iOS, you can do it too. Select the share sheet icon in the bottom left, the little box with the up arrow in it. Then you'll choose Unmodified Original. We're going to have to circle back to where to export the file to in a bit, because that gets confusing too, but that Unmodified Original part is what you need to remember. The exported original is going to break into two files. If the photo was taken as a live photo, you're going to get the original photo, either a JPEG or an HEIC, depending on how you took it, and an MOV file. And that's that little 2 or 3 second video taken for the live photo. Now, if it wasn't a live photo, you'll still get two files, but it'll either be a JPEG or HEIC, and the second file is an AAE file. I had to look this one up. The AAE file contains any adjustments you may have made to the original photo, so those changes could be reapplied if you ever wanted them back. All right, so now we know how to export unmodified originals. Great. I exported an unmodified original and I dragged it into iMessage, and sadly, bringing that image into Photos on another user account did not allow me to edit the depth of field. Okay, so iMessage is definitely out as a transfer mechanism if you want the recipient to be able to edit the depth of field. But this unmodified original method is still crucial for what will work. Okay, I need to rest a little bit. Steve, entertain me. What have I been missing?
Not much, although people wanted to know if you were the designated drinker at the brewery.
I was a designated driver, as it turns out, both times, right?
I put in DD, and John, of course, said designated drinker.
No, I'm not a big beer fan.
Yeah.
When we go to a distillery, though, I'm not driving.
Or a winery.
Al was your last one. What's that?
Or a winery.
Yeah, I think you drove the last time, right?
Yeah.
I have been known to drive at wineries, too. I'm not coughing as much, but boy, is that getting tired. Tired throat. All right. I did finally find a couple of ways that you can transfer the file, but the format in which you took the original photo... I did finally find a couple of ways you can transfer the file, but the format in which you took the original photo matters. I think. I'm not entirely sure, though. I'm an engineer by training, and it's in my DNA. I know how to do controlled experiments where you change just one thing at a time. That's the only way to know for sure what affects the outcome of an experiment. But in all of my testing with Pat, some with Jill, and later extensively with Sandy, even while I was watching her screen, I've seen some methods not work and then start working for no apparent reason. Sandy is my witness on this. Now, I'm going to have to give you the best advice I can, but don't be surprised if at some point you get inconsistent results. I just heard a crackle. But in all of my testing, that's the only way to know for sure what affects. I'm an engineer by extensively with Sandy. I've seen some method for no apparent reason. Okay, it's just crackling.
Yeah, I think the crackling is StreamYard.
But I think you're muted, aren't you, when I'm hearing this? So I don't know where it's come from. Sounds like it's coming from me.
You were crackling, yeah.
I know, but I shouldn't be hearing StreamYard. All right. Okay. All right. One of the things Pat and I discovered that we think caused janky results was that the format in which she took our family photo was a JPEG, not HEIC. The HE and HEIC stands for high efficiency, but it's also a newer format that allows more options. To increase your chance of success in transferring photos so they can have their depth edited, I suggest you ensure you're using an HEIC for your photos. On the iPhone, in System Settings, scroll down and open Camera, select Formats, and under Camera Capture, ensure that High Efficiency is selected. The other option is called Most Compatible, and that's the option that creates a JPEG. Pat had set her camera back a while back to take JPEGs because she had had trouble sending photos to some Android friends. Keep that in mind if you choose to make the change to HEIC. Now, I know this feels like we're fixing to make a plan to maybe start transferring some photos someday, but there's one more thing that matters. The person receiving the image must be on iOS 17 or macOS Sonoma. That little fact reared its head when Steve was unable to edit the depth on a photo I'd sent to him, and yet Sandy could see the depth slider on the same photo. We'd gone back and forth. We couldn't figure out what was going on. Now, I had done tons of experiments using Steve's MacBook Pro to test whether photos were editable, and they were working. But when I sent him this one photo, he happened to be on his Mac Studio, and it didn't work because it was still on macOS Ventura, and his laptop had already been on macOS Sonoma. So the recipient has to be on iOS 17 or macOS Sonoma. Okay, I think we finally have enough caveats here to get to be able to finally transfer the photo. There we go. The first way I found that allows you to successfully send a portrait photo to someone and have them be able to edit the depth information was to use Apple Mail. Dragging right from Photos into Mail had the same problem as iMessage. So, the way you do it is first export an unmodified original, as I described earlier, and then drag it from the Finder into Mail. It works, but there's one more thing you have to do. I told you this is madness, right? All right, you've probably noticed that in Apple Mail, when you attach an image, there's a little drop down in the upper right that lets you change the size of the image you're sending. You get to choose between small, medium, large, and actual size. However, if you've dragged in an unmodified original, you get one more option. It says Choose Original Image. You must select this for the photo to be transported to its recipient without any of the data being stripped away. Remember, that recipient's got to be on Sonoma or iOS 17 in order to make the edits to the portrait photo that you've taken them. Now, Sandy and I tested the idea of putting the unmodified originals into Dropbox, and then I would just send links to them. She had total success if I sent a link to a single image or if I compressed a group of them into a zip file. In all cases, she was able to modify the depth data. Now, Dropbox with unmodified originals for the win. Earlier, I said that sharing via iCloud.com didn't work because it was more of was not a collaboration tool, and it was actually more showing somebody a photo. And I've got this written backwards. That's backwards, Sandy. It says didn't work because it was more of a collaboration tool. More of a collab. I've got it backwards, don't I? It isn't a collaboration tool. It's all about just showing them a photo. All right. I got to remember to send that to blog. Earlier, I said that... All right. Earlier, I said that sharing via iCloud.com didn't work because it is not a collaboration tool. It's all about just showing them a photo. But what about sharing from iCloud Drive? I exported an unmodified original to my iCloud Drive in the Finder so that it was a file, not part of Photos. I right-clicked on the file and I chose Share and I selected iMessage. I sent a photo of our cat, Grace, to Sandy. While opening the image in Photos looked like it worked because the upper left clearly said Portrait and it had the little F, she didn't see the depth slider when she went into Edit. We backed out of Edit and tapped on the word Portrait with the little F. Actually, I think this is mixed up. I'm mixing my terms here. While opening I sent a photo of our cat, Grace, to Sandy. I sent the same image in the same way to another phone that I have, and I was able to open it. And while it looked like it worked, because the upper left clearly said Portrait and had the little F, I didn't get the depth slider when I went to Edit. I backed out of Edit and I tapped on the word Portrait with the little F, and I saw something very curious. Under Portrait, it had two options: Portrait with a little F next to it, and Portrait Off with the F having a line through it. But get this, the Portrait Off option was selected. Why would the photo say it was Portrait, but have Portrait Off? But it gets even weirder. You cannot change the selection, so I'm unable to change it to a portrait photo. Sandy and I are in agreement that this must be a bug because she saw that on her version as well. Why would they let you send a portrait photo, tell you it's portrait, give you a drop-down to enable the portrait photo, but disable the option? Undaunted, I went back into the share sheet on iOS, and there's a button for options before you export. You can set the format from automatic to current or most compatible. We would want current to ensure we still had the HEIC on export. At the bottom, there's a toggle that says All Photos Data, and this is off by default every time you go to export a photo from the iPhone. Below the toggle, Apple explained, original quality files will include edit history and metadata like location, depth information, and captions. The recipient can view the current version and modify any edits. Well, that sounds like exactly what we want. Above the title, the heading says that this toggle affects AirDrop and iCloud links only. All right, so I set the photo to current format. I chose Send as iCloud link. I turned on All Photos Data, and I texted the iCloud link to the image to Steve, and believe it or not, it worked on his iPhone running iOS 17. Okay, we have a success there. Next, I found another method on iOS that worked with iCloud. If you export as original from Photos using the share sheet, you can email it as an attachment. When you start the email, tap in the blank area of the screen. So you haven't typed anything yet. You'll first see Paste, Select, and All when you do that tap. But there's a chevron to the right. If you tap that, you'll see Add Link, Autofill, and Format. Tap the chevron to the right again. Now you'll see Quote Level and Insert Photo or Video. Do not select photo or video because it won't work. Instead, tap that darn right chevron a fourth time, or is it third time? Anyway, tap it again, and now you'll see Attach File. Select that option, and it'll let you navigate to where you saved the file. When you select Send in the email, you'll be asked whether you want to send as full size, and you need to say yes. Now, this one sounds a lot harder than it is, except for the option that you might fat finger the chevron button, which I did the first few times, but it does get the job done. So remember, you want to attach a file, not add a photo or video, because that's going to ask you to get it out of Photos, and then it won't do the right image. It won't be the unmodified original. You need to attach a file and find it out in the Finder. All right, to be complete, I wanted to try another cloud file sharing option, so I abused my friendship with Sandy one last time by sending her a link to an unmodified original in Google Drive. I created the link by opening my Google Drive in Finder and right-clicking on the file and choosing Copy Link to Clipboard. Easy peasy. But when she opened the link, she didn't have permissions. So she had to request permission. This triggered an email to me that I had to open. Then in the email, I had to click a link to log into Google Drive on the web and give her editor permissions. As soon as I granted her permission, she was then able to import the image into Photos, and she was able to change the depth of field. So while it was incredibly annoying compared to just using a Dropbox link, technically you can use Google Drive to share an unmodified original portrait photo that the other person can edit. At this point, I told her I refused to install OneDrive to test that option because I'm weary of this entire investigation. All right, let's go to bottom line here. I explained at the beginning that I descended into madness and dragged Sandy with me, and now you understand what I meant. At least I warned you. All right, let's see if I can summarize my findings. To take a live portrait photo, you have to have one of the iPhones 15 running iOS 17. I recommend setting your image format to high efficiency, but I'll confess that I did find scenarios where JPEGs actually worked, so your mileage may vary. For the person receiving your image to be able to change the depth of field, they must be on macOS Sonoma or on iOS 17, but they do not need to own an iPhone 15. To transfer the photo successfully so they can edit the depth of field, your choices are: from macOS, export an unmodified original, and then you can save locally and attach to an email in Apple Mail, but be sure to change the size to original image. Or you can save it to Dropbox. If you want to make it harder, save it to Google Drive and send them the link. This may work in other non-iCloud services, but I haven't tested elsewhere. If you're on iOS, you can use the share sheet and use options to set the format to current, send as iCloud link, and turn on all photos data. Then you can send the iCloud link through any service you like. You can text it, you can email it, whatever you want. On iOS, you can also airdrop the photo if you toggle on all photos data in options first. Finally, in iOS, you can export unmodified original using the share sheet from Photos, save to iCloud or another cloud service. Then you create an email and add the image as an attachment. Now, I have a suspicion that much of what I've explained would work with regular portrait photos, but early on in the process, I got overwhelmed with all of the options, and I focused my efforts on just the new live portrait photos. I welcome you to try any or all of these methods and find out if they work for your regular portrait photos. As you can imagine, this has consumed my daily life for several not years.
Yes, years.
That's what it felt like today. God, I was exhausted. As you can imagine, this has consumed my daily life for several days, taken up Pat's time, Jill's time, and especially Sandy's time to do all of these experiments. I thank them for all of their efforts, and I'm just going to go take a nap now. All right.
And your husband, Steve.
Yeah, you did a little bit. Did you want me to thank you, sweetie?
No, I'm joking. I'm just seeing if I can get under your skin.
I saw one little typo here, but really, focus on. Oh, I can't find it. Send a blog. All right. I think it's time for support the show. Let me teach you how. Wait, what do you have? Steve should get most of the credit. Really? What was it he did? He did there, huh? You were patient when I kept taking your phone, mostly.
Or coming over to my my studio.
Yeah, but that studio, actually, that was really good that you had a computer that wasn't on Ventura or wasn't on Sonoma, because I don't think I would have. I think that was useful for people to know.
Yeah, that was my plan.
Was it really? All right. Quick, support the show. Do you wish that right now the show would be... No, it's not recording. Do you wish that right now the show would be interrupted by an ad? No? Well, then how about becoming one of the fine folks who support the show financially by going to podfeet.com/PayPal and making a one-time donation so we never go to ads? You could be cool like John Murray and put a reminder in your calendar to make a donation once a quarter. I hope you'll consider helping keep the show going. right. I didn't really spam this blog post of Bart's because there's like no images in it, and it's sort of just a quick outline. But we recorded a real fun time. Bart on big iPhones, Allison on big iPhones. Option T. You guys should have seen how rusty we were trying to do security bits, man. We were not good. Oh, you want to hear a blink, Steve? Steve?
Of course.
All right, I'm gonna give him a blink. Here you go.
Blink.
There you go.
That's a pretty snappy one.
That was. All right, get rid of that one. Donate a quarter? Yes. Actually, I wonder whether you can donate a quarter on PayPal. All right. Move those to there. How's this gap sound? You'll consider helping keep the show going. Well, it's that time of the week again. It's time for Chit Chat Across the Pond. This is episode. That's right. I need to fix this. And this week, our guest is Bart Busschots, but we are not here with an episode of Programming by Stealth. Well, hey, Bart, last time. We're just going to cut all that out. I didn't know if it was going to be a chit chat or just a chat. And it turned into just a chat. Is blink just an upside down blink? Consider helping keep the show going. Well, hey, Bart, last time we talked, we chatted about you going with a bigger watch for your digital life, right?
I did.
Yeah, it looks like that should be over there. Something else in your digital life, right?
I did. I've had a year of tech inflation. Where iPhone.
The giant.
The gigantic phone, because you phone 6 Plus.
And that's when
It was motion.
All right. Good.
I just kind of like him, so there we are.
Yeah, don't
okay,
apologize.
I can't remember how I'm supposed to end this one, but how's about some happy computing?
That sounds good. Talk to you later, Bart.
Bye.
There we go. Perfect. Take that out. Oh, what are you crashing for? Oh, scared me. All right, I'm going to let you guys go in just a second. Tell me, audio disconnected. Allison's iPhone 15 Pro mic is not available. I don't want you to use that. All right. Okay, I know it's past the hour. I'm going as fast as I can. All right, here we go. Well, that is going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have a question or a suggestion, just send it on over. You can also follow me on Mastodon at podfeet at chaos.social. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. If you want to join in the conversation, you can join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me and all of the other lovely NosillaCastaways. You can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon or with a one-time donation like John Murray at podfeet.com/PayPal. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, which will go on next weekend of Thanksgiving weekend, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. And that did not get recorded because it tried to use my iPhone microphone.
Oh, yeah, that looks blank.
Yep. How do I?
Let's try that again.
Yeah. And I was on my game. All right, here we go. Well, that's going to wind us up for this week. Did you know you can email me at allison@podfeet.com anytime you like? If you have a question or suggestion, just send it on over. You can follow me on Mastodon at podfeet at chaos.social. Remember, everything good starts with podfeet.com. If you want to join the conversation, you can join our Slack community at podfeet.com/Slack, where you can talk to me and all of the other lovely NosillaCastaways. You can support the show at podfeet.com/Patreon or with a one-time donation at podfeet.com/PayPal, like John Murray. And if you want to join in the fun of the live show, head on over to podfeet.com/live on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific time, even this weekend on Thanksgiving weekend, and join the friendly and enthusiastic NosillaCastaways. Thanks for listening and stay subscribed. All right, That time it worked. I think that's too close, though.
Bye.
Well, that's... Gotta give a little bit of a gap. That sounds good. Talk to you later, Mark.
Bye.
Well, that's going to wind... Okay, there we
Better.
go. And now you want me to put this at the exact right spot that it ducks up. See how that sounds. Sing and stay subscribed. There you go. All right, 6:05.
A little
Oh,
bit late.
chapter count.
Yeah, we should do that. 1, 2, 7.
I have 7. Sorry.
7.
Posting images from Cupertino. Ooh. That will be fun. 7?
Yep.
Oh, agreed.
We're good.
All right, we are cleared for export. There we go. All right, everybody, thank you for coming. Kiss Rose goodbye. Mwah. Had a good time. I made it through.
Happy Thanksgiving to all of you in the U.S. who celebrate.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving.
And good
Happy
week to
eat
everyone.
too much.
Yeah.
All right, bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.